Have you ever noticed that the most peaceful people are often the most private ones? There is a quiet power in knowing what to share and what to keep for yourself. In a world that constantly urges us to open up, to speak louder, to post more, the wise do something else. They pause. They protect. They preserve. Especially after the age of 60, when you've already walked through the noise, through misunderstandings, betrayals, oversharing, and being misunderstood, you begin to see privacy not as secrecy, but as a form of strength. The Stoics understood this well. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought, so guard it well." In our youth, we believed that being open was the path to connection. But with time, you realize not everyone deserves access to your heart, your fears, your past, or your hopes. Not because you are bitter, but because you are wiser now. The world today celebrates transparency. Social media teaches us to document everything: your age, your finances, your health, your emotions, your family's problems, even your pain. But the Stoics, Epictetus, Seneca, Aurelius, taught the opposite. That restraint is true freedom. The more you share carelessly, the more you risk losing your peace. Because every detail you give away can be misunderstood, judged, used, or twisted. And slowly, your dignity is chipped away, not by others, but by your own lack of discretion. After 60, your greatest asset is not your wealth, your reputation, or even your experiences. It is your inner stillness, your ability to remain grounded when others seek noise. In today's video, we'll explore 8 things you should never share with anyone, especially as you age. Not because you're hiding something, but because you're finally choosing what's worth protecting. From your age and finances to your private life, your pain, your generosity, we'll uncover how keeping certain things to yourself can actually bring more respect, more peace, and more freedom into your life. So before you speak, before you reveal, before you answer that personal question, ask yourself one simple question. Am I sharing this from strength or from insecurity? Because the one who knows what to withhold often holds the greatest power of all. 1. Your finances, let wealth whisper, not roar. There is a quiet dignity in keeping your financial matters to yourself. After 60, money means something different. It's no longer about status or showmanship. It's about freedom. The freedom to live life on your own terms, to wake up when you want, eat what you like, and give your time to what truly matters. But here's the truth few dare say aloud. The moment you start talking about your money, you start losing control over it. Some will envy you, some will expect from you, and some will begin to treat you like a resource, not a person. It doesn't matter whether you have a little or a lot. When you reveal your finances, people no longer see you. They see a bank account, a possibility, an opportunity, a soft target. That distant cousin suddenly wants to borrow. That neighbor begins to hint. Even your own children, though they love you, may unconsciously begin to see you through the lens of what you can give, instead of who you are. But the Stoics warned us against this long ago. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Sharing your wealth, or your struggles, too freely creates stories in other people's minds. If you're doing well, some will say you got lucky. If you're struggling, others may assume you made poor choices. Either way, your financial truth becomes a story told by others, not a truth you own quietly and fully. And that is the Stoic message here. Control what you can. You cannot control how others think, but you can choose what you reveal. And choosing to keep your finances private is not secrecy, it's sovereignty. Let your generosity be felt, not announced. If you help someone, do it quietly. If you struggle, seek help only from those you trust deeply. There is no virtue in parading either abundance or scarcity, because money is loud, but wisdom whispers. Those who truly understand value, not just of dollars but of character, will never judge you by your lifestyle or possessions. They will feel the richness of your presence, your calm, your groundedness. After 60, peace is more valuable than profit, and peace comes in part from protecting your boundaries, especially around money. So the next time someone asks, "How much do you make? What did your retirement bring in? How much is your pension worth?" You don't need to lie. You don't need to explain. Just smile, change the subject, and remember, let them wonder. Because silence about money is a sign of deep self-respect. Second thing not to share. Your age, a number. You don't owe anyone. One of the most seemingly innocent questions. How old are you? Often carries a weight far beyond small talk. And as we age, that number becomes more than a fact. It becomes a label. The world has a quiet but powerful way of assigning value based on age. People assume that after 60, you're slowing down, that you're no longer learning, no longer contributing, no longer relevant. But that assumption couldn't be further from the truth, because the years you've lived are not a limitation, they're a library, a deep well of wisdom, experience, and perspective. Still, once people know your age, they start seeing you differently. They may offer unsolicited advice, speak more slowly, or stop inviting you into conversations that seem too modern, not out of cruelty, but because society has trained them to look at age through a narrow lens. But Stoic wisdom teaches us this: you are not your number. You are your presence, your virtue, your ability to live fully in this moment. When you keep your age private, you preserve something precious: freedom. Freedom from being boxed in by expectations. Freedom to live by your own pace, not a script someone else wrote for people your age. After all, who gets to decide what's appropriate for someone who is 62 or 74 or 81? Is there an expiration date on joy, on growth, on meaning? Of course not. Seneca once wrote, "We are always complaining that our days are few, and yet acting as though they will never end." What matters isn't how many days you've lived, it's what you're doing with the ones you have now. Your age doesn't define your strength, your curiosity, or your capacity to love. Keeping your age to yourself isn't about vanity, it's about autonomy. When no one knows your number, they're forced to engage with your spirit, your sharpness, your humor, your depth, not their assumptions. In this world of timelines and checkboxes, that is a quiet kind of power. So the next time someone asks your age, pause and consider, do they need to know, or are they simply trying to place you in a category? You don't owe anyone that label. You are allowed to exist beyond numbers. You are allowed to be timeless. And that perhaps is the most graceful rebellion of all. Third thing not to share. Family conflicts. Keep the curtains closed. There is a saying older than most of us: don't hang your dirty laundry in public. And yet, in today's world, where every meal, every opinion, every grievance is aired for others to see, keeping personal matters private has become a forgotten art, especially when it comes to family. Every family has its mess: disagreements, long silences, unspoken hurts. Even the closest siblings argue. Even the most loving children disappoint. Even the strongest marriages stumble through storms. But what happens when we speak of these conflicts outside the home? We think we are relieving pressure, venting to feel heard, but often we are breaking something fragile: trust. Because once a private hurt becomes public knowledge, it stops being just yours. It becomes something others can judge, criticize, or use. It invites opinions from people who do not, and cannot, understand the full story. And then something worse happens. The wound that could have healed in silence begins to reopen under the weight of outside commentary. Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control what others say or how they react, only how we conduct ourselves. When you share your family's pain, you hand over control of your story to people who were never meant to hold it. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be tolerant with others, strict with yourself." That includes restraint, The discipline to hold your tongue, even when emotions run high. Not because you're hiding the truth, but because you're protecting something sacred. A family is like a house. Its foundation is built on trust, and its rooms are filled with memories, both good and painful. When you open the door too wide, you risk letting strangers rearrange the furniture of your life. This doesn't mean you must suffer in silence. Speak to a counselor. Confide in someone you deeply trust. But avoid turning your family story into casual conversation, or worse, gossip. Because after the conversation ends, after the listener goes home, it is still your family you return to, your children, your siblings, your spouse. And those relationships need space to breathe, not the added weight of a dozen outside voices. So hold your family's privacy close, not out of pride, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because the dignity you protect today becomes the peace you preserve tomorrow. Let your silence be your shield. Let your love be your reason. And remember, in an age of oversharing, discretion is one of the last true signs of emotional strength. Number 4 thing not to share. Health and medication. Speak less, live freer. As we age, conversations about health become more frequent. Doctors' visits, medications, treatments, side effects. It's natural. After all, the body begins to carry the weight of time, and sharing our experiences may feel like a way to connect or seek comfort. But there's a line that, once crossed, quietly shifts how the world sees you. When you talk too much about your health, every ache, every pill, every diagnosis, people stop seeing you. They start seeing your condition. And slowly, you are no longer James, who paints and loves jazz, or Helen, who raised 3 kids and used to hike every fall. You become the one with arthritis or the woman with the bad heart. This isn't cruelty. It's simply how human perception works. We filter people through what they reveal. And the more you speak of illness, the more that illness becomes your introduction. But your identity is far richer than any medical report. You are not your cholesterol levels. You are not your medication schedule. You are not your diagnosis. The Stoics remind us that while we cannot always control what happens to the body, we can always control our response. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And sometimes that strength means choosing silence. Not to hide your struggles, but to honor your wholeness. Oversharing health details can also lead to something more insidious: unsolicited advice. You mention a condition, and suddenly people flood you with remedies, miracle diets, strange herbal cures, or worse, pity disguised as concern. They mean well, of course, but their words often do more to remind you of your limitations than to support your strength. That's why discretion isn't secrecy. It's self-respect. It gives you the power to define when, how, and to whom you share your story. It shields your dignity from being reduced to symptoms. It protects the sacred space where healing, real, quiet, personal healing, can take place. And it's worth remembering. When people know too much about your health, their perception may change even when your condition hasn't. They may walk slower around you, exclude you from decisions, or assume you're not capable, not because of malice, but because you gave them a lens to see only your vulnerability. So keep your medical matters close. Talk to your doctor. Confide in a trusted loved one. But don't feel the need to narrate your every discomfort to the world. You are still here. Still full of thoughts, laughter, value, and purpose. Let that be what speaks loudest. Number 5 thing not to share. Intimacy and romantic life. Sacred things belong in silence. There are some chapters of life that lose their meaning the moment they are read aloud to the wrong audience. Your personal relationships, especially those built on intimacy, affection, and emotional connection, belong to that quiet, sacred category. As we age, companionship often becomes more meaningful, more nuanced. It's no longer about passion set ablaze by youth. It becomes about presence, the warmth of a shared glance, the ease of silence with someone who truly knows you. the comfort of being understood without needing to explain. But in today's world, even these deeply personal bonds are not spared from casual conversation. People talk about their romantic lives as if they were headlines. They share private moments with strangers on social media. They let others weigh in on something that was never meant for public discussion. And what is sacred begins to unravel. The Stoics would have raised an eyebrow at this habit. They taught us that what is truly valuable does not need display. And that includes love. Seneca once warned, "Enjoy present pleasures in such a way as not to injure future ones." When you share too much about your intimate life, whether it's joy or frustration, you invite others into a space they were never meant to enter. And once they're in, they bring with them judgment, misunderstanding, and noise. Some will make assumptions, some will turn your private story into gossip, and some will simply not understand, not because they're unkind, but because it was never their place to understand in the first place. You don't protect intimacy by hiding it. You protect it by honoring it. That means choosing silence over spectacle. It means letting your relationship breathe away from the spotlight, to be shaped not by others' opinions, but by the quiet rhythm you and your partner create together. Especially after 60, when love often returns in quieter, richer forms, perhaps after loss, divorce, or decades of shared life, it becomes something almost holy. To explain it is to shrink it. To parade it is to risk losing its essence. And if you're not in a relationship, this lesson still matters. Because your inner world, your hopes, affections, memories, even your loneliness, is something to be handled with gentleness. Not everything needs to be announced to be real. Let your dignity guide your disclosures. Speak only to those who have earned your trust. Share only when it nurtures connection, not when it feeds curiosity. In a world obsessed with overexposure, privacy is power. And in love, privacy is also protection. What you hold sacred, hold close. Number 6 thing not to share. Charity and generosity. Give without the echo. In a world where every act is recorded, every kindness photographed, and every donation announced, one ancient truth remains. Real generosity doesn't need applause. You've likely learned by now, especially after 60, that the most powerful gestures are often the quietest. A warm meal dropped off without a name. A check slipped into an envelope. A helping hand extended with no conditions, no speech, no spotlight. The Stoics would nod in approval. Marcus Aurelius reminded us not to waste our lives seeking the approval of others, and Seneca was even more direct. A benefit is rendered worthless by the expectation of gratitude. True giving, he said, is its own reward. When you give and expect to be seen, to be thanked, to be praised, it's not really giving. It's a transaction. And when generosity becomes performance, it begins to serve the giver more than the one in need. That's not virtue. That's vanity in disguise. Why else should we keep our kindness private? Because public generosity can quietly wound the dignity of the one receiving it. Not everyone wants to be seen as a person who needs help. Some carry their pride, their independence like armor. And when we expose their struggles, even unintentionally, we may rob them of something more precious than money, self-respect. So give, but give humbly. Give quietly. Let your left hand forget what the right hand did. The most sacred charity is the one that leaves no trace, except in the heart of the one who received it. And there's another reason. When you keep your giving silent, you protect your own peace. You don't open yourself up to people seeking favors, to judgment, to manipulation. You give from a place of strength, not for reputation, but from principle. There is an old proverb, money talks, but true wealth whispers. Let your kindness whisper too. Let it be woven into your life like a thread of gold only you can see. Let it be part of your character, not your resume. After 60, you have nothing left to prove. You don't need to be admired, only to be aligned with your values. In a time where the loudest gestures get the most attention, Yours can be the rarest kind, a gift given in silence, a good deed done without witnesses, a legacy that needs no monument. Number 7, thing not to share. Honor and accomplishment. Let your actions speak. There comes a point in life, often after 60, when you realize that the loudest people are rarely the most respected. Those who constantly remind others of their titles, achievements, or sacrifices often betray a quiet insecurity. Because the truth is this: the more you need recognition, the easier it is to lose it. Honor isn't something you declare. It's something others sense. In your calm, in your choices, in the weight of your silence when you could have boasted. You've likely met people like this. The man who built a successful career but never needed to say so. The woman who raised a family through storms and silence, never asking for praise, but carrying her legacy in her posture and peace. The Stoics knew this kind of strength. Seneca warned us that the desire for applause is a mark of an unstable mind. And Epictetus taught that it's not what happens to us that matters, but how we carry ourselves through it. You may have accomplished great things, survived losses, led others, built something lasting. But as you grow older, the most meaningful legacy is not found in resumes or plaques. It's found in the way you made others feel, in the way you endured hardship without bitterness, in the way you moved through the world without needing constant approval. Your character is your loudest statement. Not every story needs to be told. Not every victory needs an audience. Not every wound needs to be shared to be respected. In fact, the more quietly you wear your honor, the more deeply it resonates. People trust those who don't over-explain. They follow those who walk with quiet dignity. They remember those who didn't need the spotlight to do what was right. And here's something even more important. Constantly speaking of your achievements often invites envy or even silent resistance. But when you let your life speak for itself, you invite something stronger: genuine respect. After 60, true power lies in restraint. You've already proven yourself. You don't need to remind anyone. Let others discover your strength through your patience. Let them feel your wisdom in your calm. Let your presence do what no list of accomplishments ever could. Because a life well lived doesn't need to shout. It leaves a quiet mark in the lives it touched, the peace it brought, and the example it set. Let your honor be your silence. Let your dignity be your legacy. The last thing you should not share: wounds and insults, the power of letting go. There's an old saying: when you carry a hot coal intending to throw it at someone, you're the one who gets burned. And nowhere is that more true than with emotional wounds. After 60, most of us carry scars, betrayals, harsh words, moments we wish we could erase. Some came from strangers, others, more painfully, from people we once trusted. But here's the truth: you don't heal by retelling the story of your pain. You heal by deciding not to let it define you. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus taught that we are not disturbed by things themselves, but by our interpretation of them. The insult is not what hurts us most. It's the fact that we hold on to it, replaying it again and again like a song that brings only sorrow. When you talk about a wound over and over, how someone mistreated you, how they didn't say sorry, how they left you broken, you etch that pain deeper into your memory. Instead of closing the book, you keep reopening it. And with each retelling, you bleed a little more. But silence is powerful. It doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let the past rob the present. Forgiveness in Stoic philosophy is not weakness. It is strength. Not because the other person deserves it, but because you do. You deserve freedom from the emotional weight that's been sitting on your chest for years. You deserve peace that isn't tied to someone else's apology. And here's something few will tell you. You can forgive without reconciling. You can choose to release the bitterness without ever seeing that person again. Forgiveness is not about the other. It's about reclaiming your energy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Don't become hardened by the hardness of others. Don't let someone's insult echo through decades of your life. After all, the world does not stop being cruel just because we grow older. But our reaction to it can evolve. The angry words you don't repeat, the slights you don't feed, the apologies you stop expecting. These are the gifts of a wise soul. At this stage in life, serenity is worth more than being right. Peace is more valuable than validation. And dignity? Dignity is built not by what you've endured, but how you've chosen to rise above it. So when the old pain returns, when your ego whispers, "Remember what they did," respond with this: "I remember, and I choose to walk past it." Because real strength is quiet, and real healing begins the moment you stop rehearsing your pain and start writing a new chapter. One of self-respect, stillness, and unshakable inner peace. As we grow older, the world often expects us to share more, our stories, our struggles, our opinions. But wisdom teaches us something different. It tells us that the most peaceful people are often the most reserved. They don't overshare. They don't explain too much. They simply live with quiet clarity. We've explored 8 things that should be kept private: money, age, family conflicts, health conditions, intimate matters, charitable acts, personal honors, and emotional wounds. And behind each one lies a deeper lesson. Your life is yours. Your peace is yours. Your power is yours. And it begins the moment you stop handing pieces of yourself to everyone who asks. The Stoics, those ancient teachers of resilience, knew that real strength is not in being loud, but in being centered. Marcus Aurelius didn't publish his wisdom. He wrote it in private for himself. Epictetus didn't preach to be praised. He taught so others might live with dignity. And we, in our 60s, 70s, or beyond, are no different. We are not here to impress, to prove, or to perform. We are here to live with intention. In real life, this means in conversations. You don't need to share every detail. A calm smile is often more powerful than a long explanation. In relationships, true connection comes not from constant exposure, but from mutual respect, knowing when to speak and when to simply be present. On social media, silence is your strength. Let others chase attention. You, on the other hand, conserve your energy for what truly matters. With yourself, you don't need to relive every wound or defend every choice. Your life's value is not up for debate. It is enough because you are enough. The more you keep sacred things protected, the more sacred they become. When you stop explaining your worth, others begin to feel it. When you stop broadcasting your wounds, they begin to heal. When you stop needing validation, you become unshakable. As Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." And bravery, in our later years, often looks like refusing to react, choosing peace over pride, and protecting our inner world from outer chaos. So ask yourself today, must I explain this, or can I let it be? Is this truth for sharing, or for safeguarding? Am I acting from wisdom, or from the fear of being misunderstood? Let that be your compass, because the world does not need more noise. It needs more stillness. It needs more elders who lead not with loud words, but with quiet grace. And if you are reading this, you already have that power. Guard your peace. Speak only when it uplifts. Give only what you choose, and keep the rest as your sacred ground. Let your silence be your strength. Let your restraint be your legacy. And let your life, lived with intention and dignity, speak louder than anything you could ever say. If this message spoke to your heart, if it reminded you of your own quiet strength or the wisdom you've gathered over the years, then please consider supporting this channel. Click like if you believe silence can be powerful. Subscribe if you want more content that honors your life experience, your inner resilience, and your search for meaning. And share this video with someone who still believes that true dignity is lived, not declared. Your presence here matters, and every action you take helps us keep sharing timeless truths for those who still listen with depth.